Hello, dear friend. This is the channel of General Science Studies. Today we discuss about the ecosystem. Ecosystem is what the interaction of living with non-living component of the environment and form a system that is appropriate for their sustainability. So today the ecosystem is of how many types that will be discussed before going to the classification of the ecosystem. We have to understand the environment, the component of the environment, and other things. What is the energy and how energy is used in particular the ecosystem. Major types of ecosystems are the terrestrial and aquatic. Terrestrial means the ecosystem, the system for sustainability of an organism. For example, human being is on the land, so that is the terrestrial. The other classification is the other class is the aquatic ecosystem. So all of those we will discuss. So we have to come towards the question, and that question itself is the definition of ecosystem. Already in my earlier videos, I have given the system form with the interaction of living means the biotic part of the environment. Non-living means the abiotic part of the environment. For example, livings, the plants and animals. We have to see the animals what surround us, as well as human being is also example of the livings. Certainly there are number of plants which are also example of the living. The food itself we obtain from the plants, the food obtained from the fishes, but whatever that is the livings. Then non-living, what we have, for example, air, water, the land, these are the example of the non-living. Similarly, soil components, different whatever geographical distribution, that is also the example of the non-living. Now, I have earlier discussed the fundamental aspect of ecosystem. We have to see the biotic part, the living itself. Whatever the living, I have told earlier, if the life unit itself is the cell. So there may be one cell, unicellular animals or plants. Then we have the others, very big, the elephant, the whatever, the aquatic animal, whale. So those are one of the biggest animals. Similarly, number of trees are also. So we have our survival for the fittest. Then we have the ecosystem. So fundamental aspects, the most one we needs the energy. How we get the energy in a system. For example, if in the classroom the students are there, then we have the blackboard is there. If whatever the electricity is there, whatever we are using have the food, so that particular energy is there for the sustainable, for survival, for fittest of the classroom. So that is the first one, the energy is required. Then I have told, yes, the food, non-vegetarian food, vegetarian food, how we get the foods from the agriculture produce different plants. Then we have the different food, animals, fishes, whatever those, then the seafoods, whatever those are the part of the our food. The food itself contains protein, carbohydrate, fats, and other something minerals, whatever there are the constituent of the food. Then one more thing is there. If we have to see, our food came from agriculture produce, and those are the examples of the cereals. So whatever all of you have know, the un. So different uns are there. So that is the diversification. For example, then different vegetables. So different vegetables, different fishes, different. So there is a diversification means variety of species of the cereals, varieties of species of the food, where example, the dry fruits, fruits, vegetables, pulses. So different. That is the diversification. Different types of pulses, different types of green vegetables, different types of fruits, whatever the available in different areas. So here one more thing is there. I have the protein, carbohydrate, the fats, the food. So there is certainly nutrients. Nutrients are what? The different proteins available in the food. Different plants, but their nutrient values are differ. So we need the nutrients for our survival. So nutrient cycles here may be carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle. So different nutrient cycles are there. How nitrogen is converted into the nutrients. How carbon is converted into the nutrients. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Both three elements which are present in a carbohydrate. The protein contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So, those are the nutrient cycle. All of these we have. Then the thing is there any of the organism, either plants example or animal example, then further they changes their evolution occurs after periods. So what human being Homo sapiens, so that have we back to the years, so that is then the evolution occurs. So now very simple thing. Producers, consumers, decomposers. Any of the uh, can give the answer about the decomposers. Decomposers means the material is decomposed into the simpler constituents. For example, the food undergo the process of the decomposition when this food is present in open areas. So whatever organisms are groups, they have different plants. Plants are having the their certain classes, certain their groups, certain their species. For example, if we have the vegetable, for example, if suppose we have spinach, if we have the radish itself, the specific name, specific botanical name. So there, for example, tulsi, there is the specific name, their botanical name. So number of plants available on our planet and which are used by what we have to see the different animals. So we can see uh, different plants are also there, and plants are we have the different plants. So what we have, the different animals, beggars. You know, for example, unicellular, very small. Those animals we use the microscope. Those animals not seen by our naked eyes. So protozoans, amoeba, this is unicellular. So number of animals are unicellular. Then we have certain their classes there. For example, mammals, fishes, birds, and then the reptiles. Then we have the amphibians, for example, frogs. So whatever the rabbit. Then we have one more thing is there. They depends on animals depends on the food, and that food is obtained from the plants. So those are the herbivores. Then we have the carnivores. The food required is obtained by the animals. So tiger. Tiger needs the food from the animals. Elephant needs the food by plants. So herbivores that depends on the plants. Such animals various example. Then the food get from the animals. So that is the carnivores. Omnivores combination of herbivores and carnivores. So now simple the producers. I have earlier given in earlier slides the energy. How we get the energy. All of you know about the plants. So plants are the producer of the food. How they this is the plants are the factory to produce the food. How we get the different foods from the plants. For example, if a plant or tree, whatever the shrubs, whatever the herbs, and then those plants are the producer. Photosynthesis process is there by which in presence of sun, the carbon dioxide, water and minerals, then the plant produce the food, carbohydrate is produced by the process of the photosynthesis. So number of foods are produced by the photosynthesis. So those are the producers. Then these plants are used, consumed by further organism. For example, human uses the part of the producers, the part of the plants. So we have the consumers. So here consumers are further primary, the secondary consumer, the tertiary consumer, the quaternary consumer. Primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and quaternary consumers. They form the food chain. So what we have, the last one, either plants or animals, and when dead, this process is called the decomposition. So then those dead undergo the disintegration by the decomposers. Simple example, ant, ant, and that is scavenger of the earth. How? Because dead material is undergo the process of the disintegration by the decomposers. So based on the manner in which they obtain their sustenance from the environment. So whatever producers, consumers and decomposers, all these three are involved in an ecosystem. So, what is the ecosystem? Find out the ecosystem. So, that is the question what we have already discussed. Three things are there. So, their producers are, and here depth of producers, consumers, all those things are here. One more thing is there. If, for example, plants, okay, the energy from the sun, that is also okay. Then they make the food, and that food goes to the consumers, goes to the primary consumers, goes to then further secondary consumers. Then we have the tertiary consumers. Then we have the finally quaternary consumer. So this reaches up to that. So here 10% energy rule is follow up. So that is the 10% rule of the energy. I have earlier discussed about the structure and functions. An ecosystem is a functional unit comprising living organisms and their interaction with the environment. Here biotic and abiotic, those are the two components and of the environment forming self-sustaining and dynamic system. Here the last question is the classification on ecosystem. So here two major classes are there. First one is the artificial ecosystem and another is the natural ecosystem. For example, if we have in our house the fish aquarium, for example, in a crop field, in agriculture produce a field, crop field is there, so that is artificial. Then we have the certain forest areas. Then if suppose we have the certain water areas, for example, Arctic Sea, for example, Indian Ocean, for example, Bay of Bengal. So, for example, Ganga River. So, all those are the natural, the Gir forest. So, how we have certain forests are reserved. So, one more thing is the desert. So, desert is also example of an ecosystem. For example, Sundarban areas. Then we have the Himalayan mountain areas. So here there is ecosystem. So we have natural ecosystem and artificial. Artificial, the another name is the man-made. Man-made. So men have made, for example, if a city. So city is made by the man. Then we have if a natural forest is there. For example, if we have the Kashmir Valley, so we have the Rajasthan Thar Desert. So all those are the example of the ecosystem. Now, further, we have another classification, and that classification of ecosystem is on the land, one thing, or on in water. So here first one we talk about the on the land. So that is the terrestrial ecosystem. If any village, if any city, if any state, if any country, the marcation, so that is the terrestrial ecosystem. Further, the second one is the in the water, that is the aquatic ecosystem. So major classes of ecosystem are two. First one, terrestrial, then second one is the aquatic. For example, if reserved tiger at Ranthambore, so what will be the type of, where is that included in the terrestrial ecosystem? But terrestrial is further into the natural and artificial. Similarly, in case of the aquatic ecosystem, so there are natural and artificial. Oh, for example, if forest is example of the terrestrial. Another grassland is also example of the terrestrial. Desert, all of you know about the Thar Desert. Then we have Arabian Desert worldwide. So one more desert in India, and that is the Ladakh area. So in case of the Ladakh, that is also the part of the desert. So that overall particular ecosystem have their specific plants, their specific animals. For example, in case of the desert, there is there found the camels. All of you know about the camels who can store water for 1 month, because the camel is animal that present in the ecosystem of desert. So there are scarcity of water, so that is the desert. One more thing is the plateau. So South Deccan Plateau or different plateaus are there. So those are the ecosystem. Aquatic, for example, if simple pond is there, simple lakes are there, aquariums are there, certain seas, oceans. I have given example of the Indian Ocean. Then we have the Pacific Ocean. Where is that particular Pacific Ocean? Where is the Antarctic Ocean, Arctic Ocean? Then we have one more is the Dead Sea. So where is the Dead Sea? So in that particular Dead Sea, the interaction of living with non-living and form their concerned system. So further we have then artificial system, that is the example of the aquarium. So we have to see any of the problem related with the classification of the ecosystem. Then we have to come the first one, their structure, their functions, so their biotic and abiotic components. So overall we have also the energy flow, the 10% rule. Then we have the different producers, consumers, then decomposers. I have discussed number of plants, number of animals. So all those forms the whatever we have the things of the biotic and abiotic components. So we have to see what are those particular those needed for that. So whatever finally the two types, terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic, then two classes. Further, the terrestrial is subclassed into artificial ecosystem and natural ecosystem. Similarly, aquatic ecosystem, the simple, artificial and natural system. So that's all today's discussion. So if any needs the queries, then he or she can go to comment on this video. Then one more, you have to subscribe and likes that particular video. Thanks for all whatever we have listened and interacted different knowledge. So ecosystem is most one needed for the survival of the fittest. Okay, thank you.